It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Homeschooling really changes your life. Yesterday, we had 4 children in the house. 4 children in the house on a school day. Our adult child was at home. Our year 11/year 12 child was unwell, and we had our 2 homeschoolers. It's just such a bizarre situation to be in. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson. I'm here with my wife, Mrs. Happy Families, Kylie. And it's still kind of doing my head in some ways that Kylie and I are doing this really countercultural thing where we're homeschooling our 2 youngest children. I know that not everybody is interested in homeschool. Personally, I find it fascinating. Whether we were doing it or not, I just find these conversations really, curious is the understatement of all understatements. We're a year into our journey right now as homeschool parents for these 2 kids. And a couple of weeks ago on the Happy Families podcast, I interviewed the CEO of one of Australia's biggest homeschool curriculum providers. His name was Brett. And when we posted it on Facebook, we got more of a response to our podcast mention that day than anything we usually do with the podcast. Posts normally don't get a massive response. This one got a really big response. So today, Kylie, you and I are going to, after that very long intro, spend some time talking about what it's been like to be a homeschool family for the last 12 months. Lots to talk about. I thought we would start with the positives and then go into the negatives, but also talk about what sort of comments and feedback we received on Facebook when I brought it up. So let's start with what you would imagine to be the biggest boon to being homeschool parents.
For me, it's literally been watching our kids become more regulated in their emotions, to be more grounded, and just there's a prevailing calm. Not all the time.
No,
definitely not all the time. But compared to what we were experiencing during school days, for the most part, I've got a 10-year-old who is just really content to do her own little thing, and she'll spend hours engaged in whatever the task is that she's happily engaged in. But also it means we're having more meaningful conversations more often.
It's about time, isn't it?
It really is. I love the conversations I get to have with her, and I love that it's allowed me in some ways to slow down that time when we're together.
Just jumping in on this as well, the children are better regulated. There's no doubt about it. There's something beautiful and calming about being together and not having the pressure of having to race out the door and so many things to worry about all the time. When I think about our year 9 daughter, Year 9? It is Year 9. Yeah, Year 9 daughter. When I think about her and her experience, what I'm loving is that her homeschool, I mean, she's following the curriculum reasonably well, but it's primarily her. We're not particularly involved in this, and she's just waking up every day and doing the work. But now that she's almost 15, a few months to go and she's 15, and she's starting to have conversations with me like, hey, Dad, I could go and get a job. And I could work during the day. Like I could work 2 or 3 days a week and earn money and start to save up for a house and a car. And I could still do all of the work that the curriculum requires in a couple of days. Like there's not that much work that I've got to do. And she's even talking about maybe doing the curriculum, but also going to TAFE and doing a course that she's interested in. It feels like it's expansive. It feels like there's flexibility. Oh, and there's this thing that she loves to do down near her grandparents' place in New South Wales. And it involves volunteering and involves a lot of time. And she's talking about, well, what about if I get a couple of weeks ahead? Could I go and spend a week at Nan and Pop's, and I can go and spend time with horses, and I can go and spend time in the outdoors, and I can go and do all this stuff. And it's not even during the school holidays, so I get to do all of it and be really involved. And I look at this and think, this is pretty wild. Like this is really, really, really cool.
I like that word that you used, expansive, because that's what I am witnessing. The fact that they're no longer stuck in this box that says from 9 till 3, this is what you have to do.
Right.
And you have to do it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's just opened their possibilities up in such amazing ways. And what I'm seeing is that we're able to tailor directly to their strengths to their hopes, desires, dreams, all of it, and provide them with those opportunities that just fill their souls with so much joy.
Now, it's not all rainbows and unicorns.
No, it's not.
And we do need to talk about the negatives, but two things that I want to bring up before we move into the downsides, the challenges of homeschooling. The first is the feedback that came through on the Facebook page when that podcast went out. It was universally positive. There was literally not a single negative comment about homeschooling there. And again, this is the thing about homeschooling. I find it just fascinating. And once people start doing it, recognizing that there are some challenges, very few people, I don't know what the stats are, but in my conversations, my anecdata, get what I did there, anecdotally and data, I put it together, my anecdotally.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. I thought that was really,
I get it.
I like that one. Thank you so much. My anecdata would suggest that people who start it really, really do like it. They like it a lot. The feedback from people online, people just talked about the positive impact that it had on their kids, as you've just done. They highlighted the positive effects on their children's well-being, on their learning, on their family relationships, and how important it was to get them out of the school environment, because so many of these kids are struggling with either neurodivergent challenges or bullying, which goes back to what Brett had to say about why so many people are signing up. His data definitely indicates that. The second thing that people highlighted, the flexibility and the freedom. Homeschooling allows for, as you've already said, this targeted, individualistic, personalised learning based on the child's interests and what the child's able to keep up with. There was one mum who has a child who has fairly significant intellectual difficulties, and so she's using homeschooling to teach him all of these life skills, and she does what she can do with the curriculum, but she's also recognizing that he's not going to have an academic life. So therefore, so long as he can get through the curriculum, it's the life skills that matter most for him. And I just love the way that she said that.
Yeah, but and here's the challenge. That child goes into the school system. There is no conversations about life skills. He's got to know.
Well, there's a curriculum to follow.
Yeah, he has to follow that curriculum, and there isn't enough capacity to tailor that learning for him. And so that's the magic, I think, of homeschooling.
Everybody acknowledged. Not everybody, but almost every single person highlighted that there are some challenges and adjustments. It requires a whole lot of commitment, a lot of adaptation, and most people who commented on how long it takes the word de-school is used to get out of that, use that 9 to 3 framework. Pretty much everyone said takes 6 months, 12 months, maybe even more. And to let go of that as a parent, as we've gone through that, we did it for 6 months? And I was just thinking the whole way through, we are ruining our children. What are we doing? We've got to get them, they've got to be doing something. They've got to be productive. They've got to be learning. They've got to be here's a maths book. Kids, just read the textbook and do something. And yet, once we got through that 6 months or so, it's been so good.
I think that families that give homeschooling a go and kind of really struggle with it, it's the acknowledgement that so often, and I would be in that boat, you go in with an expectation that's really unrealistic of what it's going to look like for starters, because the families that are doing it well, they've been doing it well for a long time.
Usually, yeah.
They've worked it out, and I'm finding that each term I'm shifting and we're growing together in this process. And what it looked like at the beginning, it definitely does not look like that now. And the importance that I placed on certain things are no longer important. And so learning to kind of work together with your child is really, really important. But I think letting go of the expectation of what it's going to look like and recognizing that it will not look like so-and-so down the road who's been doing it for 5 years and just nailing it, because they're nailing it because they've worked out what works for their kids. That's what is so beautiful about this. It's about your kids, not someone else's.
Before we talk about the negatives, the last couple of quick comments that came through that are worthy of highlighting. The first one related to financial constraints. It was a comment from Sharon who basically said she's had to reduce her work hours really significantly. And that's a really big challenge around the dollars. I'm going to bring that up again a little bit later. And then a couple of people just said the great thing is now homeschooling isn't hindering further education. It can even be beneficial. There's so many opportunities for the kids once they're finished to go to university if an academic expectation exists or if they've got those desires. So they're the positives, both our experience and the positives based on what came through Facebook. Up next, we'll have a look at the negatives and also some observations that you've made as you've spent a whole lot of time in the last few weeks with a big bunch of homeschool mums. Okay, Kylie, let's talk about the negatives. What is hard about homeschooling, given that there are so many positives and things that we've enjoyed?
Probably my list is maybe 3 long.
Yep.
The first one, I think, is as a parent, this is not even the kids, as a parent, letting go of perceived ideas around what education looks like. For the majority of us, we have only ever had standardized education.
And education looks like a teacher teaching a curriculum at the front of the room, or if a parent's going to do it, it's school at home.
Yeah.
Which is totally different to homeschool.
That's right. And I still, if I'm being completely transparent, we are still probably doing a school at home experience.
But, and this is this is both a negative and a positive. The school at home experience only takes 1.5 to 2 hours a day.
100%. 100%.
But that's also a problem because then you've got to fill in the rest of the day and you're like, can you kids just find something else to do? Oh, hang on. No, not really. Yeah, you need a little bit more parent engagement, don't you?
Depending on the age of your kids, depending on how many children you have at home, will ultimately, I think, dictate how much time is required of you as the parent, even just being present, whether you're engaged in specific learning or not. The first thing is definitely letting go of your expectations of what education looks like. I'm still there. I'm still kind of working my way through that. The number 2 thing is recognizing that this is a lifestyle choice. This is hard. If you have a full life and then you add homeschooling to it, as we have done, some days are just downright hard because I have multiple things that need to be achieved in any given day, but I have a 10-year-old who actually needs my presence.
Yeah, and a 14-year-old who wants a mum and a bit of guidance as well.
And I think throughout this year, the common thread with the other children is like, hey, Mum, I'm here. Can you see me? They all are just desperate to have that time because I think they're recognizing and seeing that Miss 10 is getting a lot of my time.
Yeah.
And that kind of is highlighting what they're missing out on.
What's the third thing?
It's a massive one. And as I talk to other parents, it is across the board can be one of the hardest things to navigate is socializing. So both my children.
Both our children. Just saying. Both our children.
Both our
Thank
children.
You. Appreciate it.
Have beautiful friends who go to school. And so during the school day, when they have the capacity to connect, they want to connect with their friends, but their friends all go to school. And just recently, we've really hit a wall with that and the recognition that this is probably the hardest thing we're coping with right now. So what about you? Is there anything that you would say that I haven't added?
So my positives are, number one, the positive benefits are just overwhelming, better regulation, less pressure. I pretty much had the same list as you. We did not coordinate this. My negatives list is I love that they get through. I know this is a negative, right? They get through the curriculum so fast that they've got all day to do what they want, but that's also a really big challenge as well. So you're out there sanding a dining table and dining chairs with the kids to get that happening, and I'm trying to get them to do some yard work or get our older kids to walk down to the beach and spend some time in the outdoors. But it's a bit of a grind sometimes to get the kids active, and that's why I'm so glad that our older daughter wants to go and get that job. So that's both a positive and a negative. There's a light side and a dark side of that one. I said it costs a lot. Like you got to spend a lot of money on all the activities for the kids because you want them to be doing stuff that matters.
But I think when you average it all out, at least with our school experience, it's costing you a whole heap less.
Oh, compared to school fees, yeah. I mean, and apart from that, if you're going to put your kids in extracurricular activities, you're probably going to pay for things like music lessons or art or a maths tutor or whatever anyway. So I guess in some ways it's not dearer, but it still feels like we're forking out for a whole lot of stuff, which we would probably be doing anyway. I mean, you've got your swimming and whatever else. And the last thing that I would highlight is the social issue. That the kids don't have the daily contact with friends that they get with school.
But they don't have the shared experiences, and that's actually what it comes down to.
Right, yeah.
So they catch up with their school friends, but their school friends want to talk about all of the things that are happening at school with their other friends that our children are not experiencing. And so the connection, at this stage, it's so much about shared experiences.
Right.
And they feel like they're missing out.
Yeah, because they're not all at school. They're all living their own lives, and then they get together for the social catch-up that's been arranged every Wednesday afternoon or whatever it is.
That's right. And so while the kids have no desire to be at school, they love being at home and they recognise the goodness of that experience. There's just this pull because they want their friends.
On the flip side of that one, though, even though I've said that they're the negatives, on the flip side, on the bright side here, data suggests that more kids are homeschooling than ever, in part because of bullying.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have my kids feel the way our kids are feeling than have them at school and experiencing horrible bullying rubbish that goes on. You've been spending a lot of time talking to homeschool mums as well. I wanted to throw their 2 cents worth in, but time has beaten us today. This is the podcast for the time poor parent who just wants answers now, and we are out of time. So maybe we can do that again down the track. We just wanted to give you a homeschool update. We wanted to give you a sense of what it's like in the trenches as we're actually doing that with 2 kids, grade 4 and grade 9, coming to a conclusion over the next couple of weeks. And overwhelmingly, we're so weird to say it because it is so countercultural, and it's such a weird thing for a guy who's a parenting expert who's supposed to be telling everyone how to work within the system. So weird that we're doing it, but it's been overwhelmingly something that we are so glad that we've done for our kids. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. If you would like more information about the stuff we talk about on the pod and how to make your family happier, whether they're at school or homeschooling, it doesn't really matter. You can visit us at happyfamilies.com.au or on our social pages, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families.